I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, let's do it. It's 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in to Local News Live here on Cypress Street Radio on AOC Channel 1 and streaming live on our YouTube channel at AOC Community Media. I want to welcome this morning our quintessential volunteer, Bruce Cohen, who's so graciously reading live from his home this morning. We're going to have articles from the Acadiana Advocate, local and state news, and we do this every weekday at 9 o'clock as a service to the community. Thank you so much, Bruce, for being here yet again this morning. We appreciate you so very much for being a huge part of this program.
Well, thank you so much, Mandy. I really appreciate it. And you too. You and Matt are a huge reason why we're able to go on every morning. So you're the tech people. I was going to say guys, but you're not a guy. So the tech people. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this and to bring this to the community. So good morning, Acadiana. Today is Tuesday, September 1st. It is actually September 1st. We're going into the Labor Day weekend. And of course, all of the news, the majority of the news is Hurricane Laura related. And there's some other events going on around the community as well, as we'll get into. But we will start with Hurricane Laura news and go from there. So Hurricane Laura, we lost everything in quotes. Storm surge crushes Cameron homes, washes caskets from graves and mausoleums by Claire Taylor, staff writer. And I do get the print edition of the Acadian Advocate, and there is a picture of a gravesite with a casket with completely above ground and overturned. So it's not a pretty sight down there. Holly Beach, as my understanding, and I'll probably mention it in the article, got completely devastated again. I remember going down there with my wife and a photographer, because my wife is a travel writer and writes about what's happening around the state. And we got a photographer and went down to Cameron Parish in Holly Beach after Rita, and it was just unbelievably devastated. And I'm sure it's very close to that after Laura. But let's read on and see what Claire Taylor has to offer us this morning. In Cameron, water from the 10-foot storm surge Hurricane Laura pushed ashore early Thursday still has part of the main street in the southwest Louisiana town of Cameron impassable. Downed power lines, trees, and other debris, even small boats, block access to other roads 5 days after Laura's eyes passed over the town. The buildings that remain standing have no power or water. Most cell towers in the town and parish are down for the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, which made landfall August 29, 2005. Governor John Bel Edwards called Laura the most powerful hurricane to ever strike Louisiana. Katrina was followed closely by Rita in 2005. In 15 years, Cameron has suffered devastating storm surge 3 times, 12 to 18 feet of water from Rita in 2005, 10 feet surge of water from Hurricane Ike, which made landfall about 130 miles away in Galveston, Texas in 2008, and about 10 feet from Laura, a Category 4 hurricane that packed winds of nearly 150 miles per hour. As bad as Laura's storm surge was, it was well below the 20-foot surge forecasters were predicting. Rita, Ike, and Laura, each storm caused homes and businesses in Cameron, lifted buildings off the crushed homes and businesses in Cameron, lifted buildings off their foundations and dropped them in the marsh, and uprooted decades-old oak trees that provided shade from the summer sun. After the 1-2 punch of Rita and Ike, some residents moved elsewhere. Others replaced their destroyed wooden homes with mobile homes. Still others opted to live in RVs that can be driven out when a storm approaches. About 1,965 people called Cameron home in 2000, according to the census. 10 years and 2 hurricanes later, the 2010 census showed only 406 residents remained in the parish seat. We lost everything for Rita. Ike and this one, Bobby Abshire, said Monday, standing in front of the Cameron Parish Library, an elevated concrete fortress built after Rita and Ike pummeled the previous libraries. We're coming back, his wife, Tammy Abshire, a native Cameron, said defiantly. This is home. Ryan Mallory doesn't have Tammy Abshire's deep roots in Cameron. He moved to the town 5 years ago from Florida, working as a commercial fisherman and oyster harvester. He's used to the wind from hurricanes, not so much the water. Had Laura hit a week or two earlier, the home Mallory and his wife shared might have survived the storm surge. He was a week away from having it elevated onto pilings. The death toll from Hurricane Laura in Louisiana stood at 14 Monday, including 8 deaths as a result of carbon monoxide poisoning. However, no storm-related deaths have been reported in Cameron Parish. Coroner Dr. Kevin Dubke said. Most people in the parish evacuated ahead of Laura, a storm the forecasters warned was unsurvivable. We are extremely, extremely lucky on that, Dubke said. I think that is a reflection of how the residents of the parish really understood this was going to be a big one. The coroner's office, however, is busy visiting cemeteries in the parish to identify graves where caskets are missing. It's not uncommon for hurricane floodwaters to wash caskets out of mausoleums or cause them to pop out of buried vaults in cemeteries. For the third time in 15 years, Laura displaced caskets from the mausoleum at Our Lady's Star of the Sea graveyard. At another cemetery on Trosclair Road in Cameron Parish, cement vaults were opened Monday filled with water, caskets washed away. Hurricane Rita and Ike displaced more than 740 caskets from the ground and mausoleums in Cameron Parish, Dubke said. Most were recovered and reinterred. Learning after Rita washed caskets to the marsh, they are now marked with a number and entered into a database so upon recovery, the caskets can return to the previous resting place. So getting away from the Hurricane Laura news for a moment, Louisiana mail ballot fights now goes to court by Mark Ballard, Capitol Bureau editor. Now that Hurricane Laura has passed, Louisiana politicos are returning to the issue of what role mail-in balloting will play in the November 3rd presidential election. With Republicans wanting to limit absentee balloting by mail and Democrats wanting to expand it, the issue has been dumped into federal court. Responses are due this week to a lawsuit filed by 3 voters, the Louisiana branch of the NAACP, and the Power Coalition of Equity and Justice. U.S. District Judge Shelley Dick of Baton Rouge ordered during a status conference held as Hurricane Laura bar down on the southwest Louisiana coast. She set September 8th and 9th for hearings to deliver evidence and arguments on the issue. You'll probably be having a busy Labor Day weekend, Dick told the lawyers. I will be reading everything filed. The issue is an emergency plan for handling voting on November 3rd and the December 5th runoff amid the coronavirus pandemic and economic shutdown. COVID-19 transmits primarily through in-person contact, and about 20% of the affected people need hospitalization, according to the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. More than 40 million people have fallen off unemployment insurance since March. In addition to electing a president in November, Louisiana voters are choosing a U.S. senator, all 6 members of the U.S. House delegation, 2 justices on the Louisiana Supreme Court, a member of the Public Service Commission, several state appellate court judges, and all the state district court judges and prosecutors, along with various local posts. While the emergency election plan will be decided in court, I hope any ruling excludes the critical mechanisms my office needs to administer the election in the extraordinary circumstances of a pandemic, Louisiana Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin said on Friday. He had testified that he needed to start getting operations in place no later than September 10th. In his initial plan, drafted in March when the state was still in lockdown, Ardoin proposed an expansive list of voters who would choose to absentee vote by mail. He was pillared by fellow Republicans in the state legislature and returned to the drawing board to come with fewer, though still some exceptions that would allow mail-in voting for the July and August primaries. Democrats and enough Republicans signed off on that plan, but the Republican majority in the legislature warned Ardoin they wouldn't approve similar protocols in the November-December election. Erdogan's latest emergency election plan offered no expansion of who can vote absentee beyond those already covered under state law, except primarily for registered voters who test positive for the COVID-19 after early voting starts but before Election Day. Erdogan's proposal provides no mail-in option for someone urged to isolate because they were exposed to the coronavirus, or for people at greater risk of serious complications, or for caregivers. They will have to cast their ballots in person. I have to go pragmatically where the votes are, Erdogan told lawmakers during House and Senate committee hearings, during which he shed tears for the partisan polarization in the Louisiana legislature. This is not the best plan. Unfortunately, it's the best plan I thought I could get passed. Slidell Senator Sharon Hewitt, Republican who chairs the state Senate committee overseeing election issues, said voting in person is no more dangerous than going to the grocery store. Only one Republican voted against Erdogan's plan, what otherwise was party line approval by two GOP majority House and Senate committees, then sending it out for a vote by the full legislature, which is also overwhelmingly Republican. The legislature's ballots on the plan being mailed to Baton Rouge, ironically observed, will be tallied September 9th. But the full legislature's position doesn't really matter because state law requires Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards to also approve Erdogan's emergency plan. He does not. Sadly, Louisiana appears to be the only state in the country moving in the direction of providing less voter protections for those affected by COVID-19, leaving Louisiana to again be an outlier on protecting the health and safety of our citizens, Edwards wrote Erdogan in an August 20th letter rejecting the plan. The official current recommendations from the CDC for those with underlying health conditions is to limit your interactions with other people as much as possible and to take precautions to prevent getting COVID-19 when you do interact with others. 34 states and the District of Columbia offer eligible voters the option of the mail ballots. Of the 16 states that require an excuse to vote absentee by mail, several have expanded the scope of absentee eligibility for coronavirus situations, including Arkansas and Alabama. The Republican National Committee is involved in lawsuits in 17 states over the issue, and the Trump campaign has set aside $20 million for litigation and poll watchers. President Donald Trump has made 91 attacks on the integrity of voting so far this year, according to the New York Times, repeatedly tweeting unsupported claims that mail-in ballots would lead to widespread voter fraud. With universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history, Trump tweeted last month. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. Postal Service executives warn that on-time delivery of ballots cannot be relied on in almost every state in the union. In Louisiana's federal lawsuit, Harding et al. Versus Edwards et al., the plaintiffs argue that with COVID-19 infection and death rates still rising, many voters are faced with the choice of participating in the election or putting themselves in danger. Because the virus seems to impact Black and Hispanic people more than white people, the decision to forego an alternative means participation effectively would disenfranchise many of those voters. In-person voters, both during early voting and on election day, will have to wait in line, including indoors in close proximity with other individuals, sometimes for hours, before they can vote, and in such crowded conditions, some polling places may be unable to accommodate necessary social distancing, the petition states. Attorney General Jeff Landry and Andrews, who usually oppose each other on most political issues, are on the same side, at least officially, in the federal lawsuit. Okay, it's time for our first PSA of the morning. And let's look at the Acadiana Symphony Orchestra, or the ASO. The Acadian Symphony Orchestra, or ASO, announces that they are shifting the fall portion of ASO 36 Revival season to a virtual live stream platform. ASO believes that this is the unquestionable solution to keeping our community safe while still providing opportunities for local musicians to share their passion and earn income despite mandated restrictions and uncertain venue viability. Acadiana Symphony Orchestra, or ASO, has and will always remain committed to providing outstanding performances to Acadiana and fueling the cultural economy of our region. Symphonies, businesses, and organizations across the country are having to rethink, retool, and reinvent. We are no different, so thank you for your grace and your patience as we map out the next few months. We are working tirelessly behind the scenes to solidify plans for those virtual concerts, and it is our commitment to you that we will clearly and concisely communicate ASO 36 Revival, season details in the coming weeks, and at a minimum, we are certain that you will receive the highest quality live streaming performance, which you can enjoy from virtually anywhere. The lineup as it is now: the program Unite will air Friday, September 11th, 2020 as a virtual performance. Triumph, Friday, October 23rd, 2020, virtual. Transform, Friday, November 13th, 2020, virtual. Believe, Thursday, December 17th, 2020, virtual. Adore, Friday, February 12th, 2021, scheduled at the Acadian Center for the Arts of the ACA. Most likely will be virtual. Empower, Friday, April 16th, 2021, St. John's Cathedral, more than likely virtual. And Revive, Thursday, May 13th, 2021, in St. Mary's Church, more than likely virtual. AOC teams up with the United Way of Acadiana for Learn United. United Way of Acadiana has teamed up with AOC and other local educational groups for Learn United, bridging the digital gap to provide educational resources for households that don't have an internet but do have a television. Learn United program airs weekdays from 8 to 2 on AOC 2, Cox 16, LUS 4, and streaming at aocinc.org/watch. For the daily schedules to submit content for this program, visit the United Way of Acadiana website, unitedwayofacadiana.org/learn-united. All right, getting back into the news. Silent killer leaves family of 4 dead. They survived storm but died later from generator fumes by Yusuf Ardid, staff writer. And this is getting back to Hurricane Laura news. Rosalie Lewis and her husband John were pillars of the Lake Charles neighborhood, and as the first Black female postal service supervisor in Southwest Louisiana, family matriarch was an inspiration, family members say. Their sturdy home withstood the wrath of Hurricane Rita in 2005, and more than half a century before weathered Hurricane Audrey, one of the deadliest tropical cyclones in U.S. history, that smashed ashore in Southwest Louisiana in the late 50s. Believing the home would hold up and able to travel because of medical conditions, Lewis, 81, her husband, and 3 other relatives hunkered down as Hurricane Laura unleashed furious winds that tore through the city Thursday, sparing few homes and buildings in its path. They all survived, and the house did too, miraculously with very little damage. But hours after the storm passed, Rosalie Lewis and 3 others were dead after the generator they set up in the garage filled the home with poisonous fumes. When emergency crews arrived, John Lewis was the only person still breathing. They made it through the storm, and there was a freak accident, said Patrick Perry, a cousin of Chris Evans, who, along with his wife, Kim Lewis Evans, 56, and Rosalie Lewis's brother, Clyde Handy, died from the generator's fumes. It's been a roller coaster ride. The family had set up a generator in the garage, but the fumes had seeped through an open door and filled the home with carbon monoxide, according to authorities and relatives. Family members say they aren't sure how the door came open while the generator was running an appropriate distance away. Of the 14 deaths related to Laura, 8 have been caused by carbon monoxide poisoning from generators. 4 deaths in Texas have also been linked to the deadly gas as of Sunday, according to state officials there. The odorless and colorless gas is especially dangerous when people are sleeping because they can die before exhibiting symptoms, such as dizziness or confusion, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's a silent killer, Perry said. Broad swaths along Laura's 40-mile wild path likely won't have water and electricity for several weeks after the store The storm damaged dozens of water plants and the other utility systems. For those who have returned, local officials have urged them to return only to assess damage and leave until basic utilities are repaired. Lewis and her husband often left their homes during hurricanes and did so for Rita, but they decided to stay, and whether Laura, because some of the older relatives had health conditions that made it difficult for them to travel, family members said. Kim Lewis Evans and her husband had stayed with her parents, who weren't able to evacuate the city. She couldn't leave her parents behind, said Barry grew up in Lake Charles and works as a cameraman for WBRZ TV in Baton Rouge. Family members had feared that all 5 people in the home had died, but they weren't told until Sunday that John Lewis was still alive, said cousin Francis Spencer, a freelance journalist and former Advocate employee. He was in critical condition, though, and had to be sent to a hospital nearly 100 miles away in Alexandria to receive specialized treatment for acute carbon monoxide poisoning. John Lewis was still on life support Monday, and doctors say he had a low chance of recovering, according to relatives. The Lewises moved to Lake Charles in the 1950s, living around the corner from Mount Olive Baptist Church, where they attended services. Other relatives moved into the neighborhood around the same time, Spencer said. John Lewis drove 18-wheelers for Kroger grocery stores, and family members say his job made him an ace navigator who was always able to avoid traffic. Granddaughter Caitlin Lewis wrote on Facebook that her pawpaw, John, had pushed her to keep going beyond the limits of our hometown, and her grandmother's career achievements served as a powerful inspiration. She taught me to set an example and to prove that Black women are just as strong, just as smart, and just as capable, she wrote. Every time we were together, she got emotional, telling me how proud of me she was. Kim Lewis Evans was Lewis's only daughter, and Caitlin Lewis recalled fond memories she had bonding over perfume and purses. Her uncle Chris Evans would make the best gumbo in the world every time she'd visit, even going as far as to make a small pot and tell others not to touch it because it was for her. Perry said funeral arrangements haven't been set for the family, with no water or electricity in the city, coupled with other logistical complications due to the coronavirus pandemic. Much is in flux. The city is torn up and everything around there is destroyed, Perry said. Everything's pending. Louisiana not asking for monitoring help from EPA by Sarah Sneath and Mark Schiffelstein, staff writers, Air monitoring contractors for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, found chlorine above detection levels at 9 locations in neighborhoods surrounding the Biolab Inc. chemical plant in Westlake, while an EPA monitoring plane found a minimal amount of 3 other chemicals as it flew a few hundred feet above the area a few hours after Hurricane Laura moved through, according to an EPA document. Of the 9 locations where chlorine was detected, an EPA summary of the first day monitoring effort said the chemical was present at levels that might violate federal limits at 2, but the agency also said that given the brief period it was around, it was unlikely to be a health risk. The 3 chemicals found by the planes, ammonia, dichloroethane, and tetrachloroethane, were not found at harmful levels. The plane also spotted a white cloud emanating from the site of a raging fire that resulted in the release of chlorine gas from the biolab plant, according to a copy of the plant's monitoring report that was sent to a chemist working as a consultant to low-income residents of the Southwest Louisiana community. The cloud hugged the ground and was moving northwest during the monitoring period, the report said. A spokesman for the State Department of Environmental Quality said Monday that the EPA's plane did not register any significant hits. He was unaware of the EPA ground level monitoring. DEQ plans to position 2 of its 3 mobile air monitoring laboratories, known as MAMLs, in the Lake Charles area later this week to keep an eye on air quality. 2 of the DEQ's 5 fixed air monitors in that Lake Charles area lost power late Wednesday night as Hurricane Laura came ashore, and the other 3 went offline Thursday. The monitors remain offline on Monday, with the closest air monitors still working 70 miles away in Lafayette. LSU sees big increase in coronavirus cases by Sam Carlin, staff writer. The number of coronavirus cases at LSU surged Monday to 229, a sharp jump over the past 5 days as the state's flagship university marches ahead with its in-person fall semester. The university reported 47 coronavirus cases from August 15th until the first day of classes on August 24th. From August 25th to August 30th, it added 182 more new cases. And those new cases came even as testing was offline at many of the school's testing sites because of hurricanes last week, LSU spokesman Ernie Ballard said. Ballard said 13 students are in isolation after testing positive and 10 are in quarantine after coming into close contract with someone who tested positive. Close contact is defined as spending 15 minutes or more within 6 feet of someone who tested positive. Those students are the ones who are on campus and don't have another place to go to isolate or quarantine, Ballard said. Interim LSU President Tom Callaghan has said previously the university doesn't have a specific number of cases that would prompt the school to revert to fully online classes, but it is instead looking at several factors, including faculty and staff, absenteeism, test results, and other trends. The number of cases reported by LSU spans all students who don't come to campus. Separately, the state health department is slated to begin collecting more specific data from each institution, and officials are meeting with higher education leaders Wednesday to figure out how to best transmit the figures. LSU tells faculty, staff, and students who test positive to report their positive case to the university through a daily symptom tracker app. The university set up multiple on-campus testing sites where anyone on campus can go get a test, and those results are also reported directly to the school. LSU welcomed tens of thousands of students back to campus earlier this month for a fall semester in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic that has roiled Louisiana and specifically Baton Rouge. The latest White House report to Louisiana shows that while the state is now in the yellow and not red zone for cases, East Baton Rouge Parish continues to post the largest number of cases. As the university sees a surge in cases, students and fans are awaiting word from Governor John Bel Edwards on whether fans could be allowed in the stadium during games that are slated to begin in September, and if so, how many. Governor, power could be out for 3 weeks. Lake Charles area grid sees very extensive damage by Will Santel, staff writer. Power outages in the Lake Charles area will take about 3 weeks to repair in the wake of Hurricane Laura, Governor John Bel Edwards said on Monday. Edwards made his comment after meeting with Philip May, president of Entergy Louisiana, and others 4 days after the Category 4 storm upended lives in southwest Louisiana and to a lesser extent central and north Louisiana. Outages total about 324,000, down from more than the 600,000 immediately after the storm arrived early Thursday morning in Cameron Parish. About 17,000 energy workers from other utilities representing 29 states are in the field. Edwards says he expects power to be restored to most damaged locations in central and north Louisiana in the next 2 or 3 days. But the damage of the grid infrastructure in southwest Louisiana from Cameron Parish to Vernon or so is very extensive, especially in Calcasieu, he said. Lake Charles is in Calcasieu Parish. The governor on Sunday said initial estimates of about 170 downed or damaged towers in the Lake Charles area has been increased to around 500. Thousands of residents whose homes largely escaped damage from Hurricane Laura has had to find shelter elsewhere because of a lack of power or water. As of Monday morning, more than 177,000 people were estimated to be without access to water because of the storm. Several thousand more are under a boil water advisory, while around 4,000 had their water systems cleared from a boil advisory so far. The city of Lake Charles water system took major damage, officials have said, and contractors have raced to patch up treatment plants to restore service to the more than 80,000 residents. Lake Charles City Hall on Sunday asked residents that do have water to conserve it as pressure levels rise throughout the city. Officials also told residents to boil their water. And more than 4,000 evacuees are staying in hotels in Texas. So thank you, Texas. Our tip-off hat to Texas for allowing that many people to go to their hotels to get away from the storm. The state also reported 324 new positive cases of the coronavirus Monday, below the rate of recent days, and 19 new tests. On Monday, the National Guard opened 17 community test sites. Now it's time to look at our day in history and the zodiac, or the horoscope as I call it. Today is Tuesday, September 1st. It's the 245th day of 2020. There are potentially 121 shopping days left in the year. I think the Christmas, New Year's holidays are going to be spent a little differently this year. I read a story in the paper earlier this morning that Thanksgiving is going to be looking very different via Zoom. Today's highlight in history: on September 4th, 1945, Americans received word of Japan's formal surrender that entered World War II. Because of the time difference, it was September 2nd in Tokyo Bay where the ceremony took place. Also on this date in 1894, the Great Hinckley Fire destroyed Hinckley, Minnesota, and 5 other communities, killing more than 400 people. In 1923, the Japanese cities of Tokyo and Yokohama were devastated by an earthquake that claimed some 140,000 lives. In 1939, World War II began as Nazi Germany invaded Poland. In 1941, the first municipally owned parking building in the United States opened in Welch, West Virginia. 1942, U.S. District Court Judge Martin I. Walsh, ruling from Sacramento, California, on a lawsuit brought by the American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU, on behalf of Fred Korematsu, upheld the wartime detention of Japanese Americans as well as Japanese nationals. In 1969, a coup in Libya brought Muammar Gaddafi to power. In 1972, American Bobby Fischer won the international chess crown in Reykjavik, Iceland, as Boris Spassky of the Soviet Union resigned before the resumption of Game 21. 1985, a U.S.-French expedition located the wreckage of the Titanic on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean, roughly 400 miles off of Newfoundland. In 2005, New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin issued a desperate SOS for a city among the flooding left by Hurricane Katrina. 2009, Vermont's law allowing same-sex marriage went into effect. 2018, in a nearly 3-hour memorial service for the late Arizona Republican Senator John McCain in Washington, D.C., McCain's daughter and 2 former presidents led a public rebuke of President Donald Trump's divisive politics and called for a return to civility among the nation's leaders. 10 years ago, President Barack Obama convened a new round of ambitious Mideast peace talks at the White House as he hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mohammed Abbas in their first face-to-face negotiations in nearly 2 years. 5 years ago, invoking God's authority, Rowan County, Kentucky clerk Kim Davis denied marriage licenses to gay couples again in direct defiance of the federal courts, and vowed not to resign even under the pressure of steep fines or jail. 1 year ago, Hurricane Dorian struck the northern Bahamas as a catastrophic Category 5 storm with record 185-mile-per-hour winds that ripped off roofs and overturned cars. South Carolina's governor on the same date ordered a mandatory evacuation on the entire coast of the state amid the threat from Dorian. Today's birthdays, we have actor George Maharis, is 92. Go George. Conductor C.J. Osawa is 85. Attorney and law professor Alan Dershowitz, very well-known lawyer, is 82. Comedian actor Lily Tomlin is 81. Let's see, singer Archie Bell is 76 from Archie and the Bells. Yay. Singer Barry Gibb from Gibbs is 74. Rock musician Greg Errico, 72. Talk show host Dr. Phil McGraw is 70, Dr. Phil. Singer Gloria Stefan is 63. See, jazz musician Bonnie James is 59. Singer musician Grant Lee Phillips from the Grant Lee Buffalo Group and solo work is 57. Country singer-songwriter Charlie Robinson is 56. Retired NBA All-Star Jim Hardaway is 54. Rock singer J.D. Fortune is 47. Actor Scott Speedman is 45. Let's see who else. Actor Boyd Holbrook is 39. And rock musician Joy Troyman is 36. Looking at the horoscope of the zodiac, if you're a Virgo, like myself, you need a change of pace. Start new goals that will challenge you. A new hairstyle and fitness routine will lift your spirits and prompt you to pursue your dreams. Libra, sit back and take in what's going on around you. Observation will buy you time and save money. Do your own thing or refuse to get roped into someone's misfortune. Scorpio, plan something special for a loved one. Take the initiative and make a change at home that will add to your comfort and happiness. A creative pursuit looks promising. Sagittarius, don't trust anyone with personal information. Concentrate on taking care of business and staying out of trouble. Limit yourself to pursuing personal growth and better health. Capricorns, investments, partnership, and joint venture will be full of changes. A relationship will take a positive turn. Better lifestyle and romantic escapades are heading your way. Aquarius, go at your own pace. You don't have to keep up with anyone or follow someone taking a path you don't care for. Concentrate on what matters to you and don't lose sight of your goals. Pisces, let your intuition guide you. Personal gains, love, and romance are within reach. All you have to do is be honest with yourself and others. Your heart will lead you in the right direction. Aries, keep your life moderate and straightforward and pay close attention to your physical well-being. When you are uncertain, take some time to slow down and reflect. Taurus, send a message that will inform peers, relatives, or friends of a decision you've made. The support you receive will gain you needed support. Personal change will bring you closer to a loved one. Gemini, refrain from sharing personal information with someone who can affect your reputation. Work quietly on your own until you are happy with what you accomplish. Cancer, virtual travel and research will pay off. A creative pursuit will help you make positive changes at home. How you handle a partnership will determine how much help you receive. And finally, Leo, don't feel that you must make a change because someone else does. Put your energy into what makes the most sense and brings the highest return. Avoid taking a physical risk. And the horoscope, as always, is an entertainment feature not based on scientific fact. And looking at the print edition of the paper today, I noticed that there are no listed funerals in the Acadiana area today, though there are funeral services being held. They just did not get into the paper on time for us to relate them to you. So getting back to the news, ACLU lift ban on downtown gatherings by Megan Wyatt, staff writer. The ACLU of Louisiana is speaking out on behalf of Lafayette protesters against Mayor President Josh Guillory's recent extended executive order that bans downtown gatherings. So we're getting back. We basically were doing state news earlier, and now we're into the local news. The nonprofit organization demanded in a Monday news release that Guillory rescind the order because it effectively bans protest in the downtown area. Guillory's administration says the orders was enacted and extended to curb rising cases of the novel coronavirus, which spiked in Acadiana earlier this summer. Proclamation first enacted at the end of June has been extended several times as Governor John Bel Edwards has extended phase 2 of the state's reopening plan. The order, which was extended again Friday, bans congregating or loitering downtown with penalties of up to $500 or 6 months in jail or both. Its extension appears aimed at quelling protests over the killing of Trayford Pellerin by Lafayette police, the ACLU news release said, noting that Guillory recently referred to protest leaders as terrorists during an interview. We all recognize the importance of social distancing during the pandemic, but the First Amendment still applies, said Elena Odoms Hebert, or Herbert Hebert, ACLU of Louisiana Executive Director, in a statement. The mayor's order is a clear violation of the right to protest guaranteed to every American under the Constitution and must be revoked immediately. The mayor's inflammatory comments about protest leaders are a clear indication of the true motive behind this policy to criminalize peaceful demonstrators and suppress their right to demand justice for the killing of Trayford Pellerin. Criminalizing peaceful protests and attacking its own constituents will not help this community heal, nor will it bring about the urgent change that needed to stop the scourge of police violence against Black communities. The ACLU of Louisiana will be closely monitoring the enforcement of the order and stands ready to take legal action if necessary to protect the right to protest in Lafayette. There's been growing tension between protesters and the Guillory administration since the August 21st death of Pellerin 31, who was shot by police officers at a gas station along the Northwest Evangeline Thruway. Louisiana State Police investigators said officers responded to a disturbance call involving Pellerin. They followed him for half a mile and used a stun gun on him, which was ineffective. Pellerin was holding a knife and was walking away from officers toward the door of the convenience store when he was shot multiple times in the back, state police said. Protesters have demanded action from law enforcement and local government officials in the days since. They've asked to meet with Guillory, for body camera and surveillance footage from the shooting to be released, and for the names of the police officers involved to be made public. Pellerin was unarmed. They're also demanding the firing and prosecution of the involved officers, along with an explanation for the use of force. About 100 demonstrators met for a protest downtown Saturday at the Alfred Mouton Confederate statue. They marched with armed guards to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette and to City Hall. The Mayor-President's administration says the executive order has nothing to do with protesting, which is why none of those demonstrators were arrested. A protest did take place downtown, and those protesters were allowed to continue, said Jamie Angel, Communications Director for Lafayette Consolidated Government, in a Sunday phone call. Obviously, we're not doing this to prevent protesting. The purpose of the executive order, according to Angel, is simply to prevent crowds along the sidewalks and streets of downtown while people wait to enter restaurants and bars operating at limited capacity. Guillory's first executive order banning downtown gatherings went into effect June 26th. It was extended on July 15th, July 25th, August 7th, and again on Friday. It has nothing to do with protesting, Angel said. If it had to do with protesting, logically, we'd include the entire parish. That's not the case. The protest did prompt a member of Guillory's administration to urge local nonprofits over the weekend to pause efforts to establish emergency shelters for those displaced by Hurricane Laura because of civil unrest in Lafayette. I personally witnessed pedestrians walking in and along Johnson Street carrying semi-automatic weapons and wearing bulletproof vests, wrote Cesar Weingirter, Guillory's chief administrative officer. I was concerned. Many people were concerned. Pastors responded to Weingirter to inform her they were aware of the situation and hesitant to open a shelter because of the unrest and uncertainty, according to a Monday statement from LCG. Lafayette has been providing support to our neighboring parishes since before Hurricane Laura made landfall and will continue to support recovery efforts in any and all ways possible, the city parish said in the statement. Hundreds of families are currently being housed in parish hotels, and as more rooms become available, we are working with the state to ensure all evacuees are properly served for and cared for. Top paramedic finds way to connect. Kittiana ambulance to honor medics, EMTs during celebration by Julia Gilbo, staff writer. Growing up, Jeremy Brown would have never pictured himself working for an ambulance company. raised in, I'm probably mispronouncing this, but raised in Chanticleer, maybe that's correct. Brown attended LSU Eunice after high school and graduated in fire emergency services. From there, he realized he wanted to further his fire training career by getting his EMT license. I was addicted to learning more, going to run calls and just being there for people in their time of need, Brown said. He was hired by Acadian Ambulance 10 years ago, and now Brown will be one of several top paramedics and EMTs the company will honor during its 2020 Medic of the Year celebration at noon Tuesday via webcast. U.S. Representative Steve Scalise, Republican of New Orleans, will be the keynote speaker. Other guest speakers will include U.S. Senators Bill Cassidy and John Kennedy, Governor John Bel Edwards, Saints quarterback Drew Brees, former NFL quarterback Peyton Manning, and former football coach Lou Holtz and LSU football coach Ed Orgeron. Acadian named Brown as Paramedic of the Year and Liz Holt EMT of the Year for the Southwest Louisiana region, along with John Laydick and Kara Cross of the South Central Texas, and 15 regional paramedics of the year and 10 regional EMTs of the year. To watch the event, visit Acadian, that's acadian.com/celebration. After earning his EMT license, Brown switched course and earned his paramedic license in 2012. Brown now works in quality improvement, scouring medical records to ensure Acadian gives the best care to patients. He also works as a critical incident stress counselor to help other emergency service professionals with tough calls while on duty. Brown also works with the Acadian Ambulance Explorer program, which teaches high school students about emergency medical services and pre-hospital care. Students learn how to take blood pressure and perform CPR. Being able to speak in these classrooms at first was so nerve-wracking, but I loved it, he said. I love seeing the kids get excited about something. For Brown, being a paramedic comes with incredibly rewarding experiences. His most memorable experience was the first baby he delivered to a single mother near Alexandria. She was so scared, and I was kind of too, but I just had to remember my training and be prepared. It was exciting to be able to hand her child and see life come in. It was such a special moment, and I think I'll remember that one forever. Yet being a paramedic is not always the exciting job that people seem to think, he said. While the job is rewarding, oftentimes it can be difficult and strenuous. Sometimes it can be a tough job, he said. It's not all the blood and guts that people think it is. It's bringing somebody to the doctor because they have no other way to get there. At the end of the day, what Brown believes gives him the ability to provide great care is the connection with his patients. Everybody has this niche about them, and I just connect with people, he said. I am a very passionate person. I do wear my heart on my sleeve, probably a little too much, but I have no problem saying no. I always just want to be there to help people. Abbeville man killed in crash on US 90. State police say an Abbeville man was struck and killed Sunday night following a crash on US 90 near North College Road in Iberia Parish. The crash claimed the life of 40-year-old Chad James Maturin. Troopers say Maturin was a passenger in a vehicle that had pulled onto the outside shoulder of US 90 eastbound around 10 p.m. Sunday. For unknown reasons, troopers say Maturin exited the vehicle and stood in the center of the outside eastbound lane of US 90 and was struck by another vehicle. He was pronounced dead at the scene by the Iberia Parish Coroner's Office. The driver of the vehicle that struck Maturin was restrained at the time of the crash and transported to a local hospital with minor injuries. Standard toxicology samples were taken and submitted for analysis. The crash remains under investigation. Tucson police seek man accused of rape. Tucson police are searching for a man accused of raping a woman August 25th, KATC-TV reports. A warrant has been issued for the arrest of Isaiah Arsenault on the charge of second-degree rape, according to Tucson police. Arsenault is known to have access to multiple vehicles, including a white mid-90s model Chevrolet Malibu, Caprice, or Impala with an unknown license plate, police said. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of arsenal is asked to contact the local law enforcement agency or call Crime Stoppers at 337-232-8477 or 337-789-8477. Okay, and that was the crime blotter for today. And it looks like we have time for one more story, and this is sports related, but also related to the protests that student athletes from ULL, who recently participated in. Napier has one regret, which this march hadn't included police station. Just check something here, folks. Okay. This article is by Kevin Foote, who's the predominant sports writer for the Acadiana Advocate and also a staff writer for the Acadiana Advocate. On Friday, UL's football team marched in support of such principles as racial justice and equality on the 57th anniversary of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C. That night, head coach Billy Napier said his sleep didn't go as well as normal, not because he disagreed with the team's march. He just objected to one aspect of the team-organized event. On Monday's bi-weekly Zoom meeting with the media, Napier expressed regret. The final stop on the march was near Lafayette Police Department offices. There's been probably 3 or 4 or 5 times, I can count them on my hand, where I laid my head down at night and I felt like I failed my team, Napier said. I think Friday, I felt that we did something wrong. Napier said when the team's leaders approached him about the march earlier Friday, that was not part of their intentions. I thought we had a great unity walk, he stated. Got to a point in the walk where we headed in the direction where the police department was. I didn't anticipate our team doing that, and they didn't intend to stop at that police department. I've told them, and I feel really strongly about this. In fact, Napier said he addressed it in Saturday's team meeting. I think that we need to change, Napier said. I've often found times myself angry and frustrated with some of the social injustices and individual acts of police brutality that continue across our country. We need change and we need to take action. We need to continue to talk. We need to strategize. We need to push for equality. I also recognize and feel really strongly about that. Large majority of police officers and law enforcement officials are unbelievable people that sacrifice each day to protect our community. Napier said the team's march, stopping 15 or 20 minutes near the police department, is by no means a reflection or view of the men and women in that department. Also, Saturday's meeting emphasized the flaw in rushes to judgment. I think it's wrong to rush to judgment and associate individual acts with a group of people, Napier said. Some of the things we experienced while we were walking on campus, people driving by yelling indespicable things. They were white people. I just told the players, hey, does that mean I'm a bad guy? Right. There are bad people in every industry, every profession. There's evil and there's good. There's learned behavior and there's corrected behavior. I see that that way on our team, on our staff. I see it that way in my family. I see it that way in law enforcement. I see it then that way in coaching. Napier said he felt the football program's relationship with local law enforcement has been exemplary since he arrived 3 seasons ago, and that we're going to do our best to reestablish the incredible relationship that we've had with our local law enforcement. I get it. I have no issue with either side. Napier also said the program is being built on having respect for authority. Respecting authority is a critical piece of what we do in our program. And law enforcement is part of that, he said. Napier said other than the stop at the police station, he agreed with everything else his team did during the march. Everybody wants you to pick a side, Napier said. I pick my players and I pick our law enforcement. I've got a great respect for them. I know our team and I know their intentions. I know their heart. That's authentic, it's genuine, and I hope you see someone who is owning what I thought was a mistake. And it was a mistake on a day where there were lots of great things that happened. It was a special day because it did create dialogue, did create awareness, there was purpose and great intentions about it and behind it. Okay, and that about wraps up the news for today. I would like to read one more public service announcement. Since I am a part of the Festival Awards, there's a fundraiser about to happen on September 10th. It's an online Zoom cafe performance. In this connected, crazy world right now, we invite everyone to create some magic with us. Festival Awards is getting to know you, so on September 10th, Festival Awards hosts a presentation of new original works by 45 authors. The event is a culmination of a fundraiser in which the public commissions writers to create personalized poems, stories, and songs. We're thrilled to have a diversity of authors from poet laureates to beginners from Lafayette to Church Point to New York City. Come listen to these one-of-a-kind premiere performances on our online cafe. Grab a drink, snacks, and sit back for an evening of fun. Some of the presenters for this very unique event are former poet laureates Jack Patel and Darrell Bork for the state of Louisiana, Dominic Cross, very well-known journalist in the area, Charles Garrett, Toby Gaspett, Cornelius Eady, Charles Claudel Garrett I, Valentine Pierce, Tony Rose from Baton Rouge, very big in the Baton Rouge poetry area there, Mona Lisa Saloy, Sandra Sarr, Tim Siebels, Tyler Robert Shelton, Margaret Simone, and John Warner Smith, who is our current poet laureate for the state of Louisiana, and many celebrated authors as well. So go to the Facebook event page for Words for You. The link to the Zoom Cafe will be available the week of the event. Or you can contact Martha Gardner at fowmartha@gmail.com or call 337-804-2482. The funds raised by Words for You will contribute to the 13th Annual Festival Awards. The Festival Awards brings established authors from all over the world to Acadiana to give public readings, writing workshops in community centers, and public schools during the first week of November. These funds will help ensure the continued expansion and success of these programs. This year's festival will be virtual and will feature graphic memorist Robin Ha, award-winning poet Erica Mittner, and Louisiana poet laureate John Warner Smith. And we are a couple of minutes past our broadcast on our TV stations, which goes off at 9:55 or 5 minutes before the hour. We are currently still being heard on Cypress Street Radio, which is our online streaming radio. That's Cypress, CYPRESS Street Radio. Online, just go to your electronic device and go to, just type in Cypress Street Radio, and you will come up with the homepage and click on the play button. You'll hear all the content that's aired on Cypress Street Radio, and also we have a YouTube station. That's AOC Community Media. And plug that into the YouTube search engine, and you will find many other programs being aired on our YouTube station, AOC Community Media. So I would like to thank you for tuning in this morning. I appreciate you listening. And we do this volunteer reading of the newspapers supplied to us by the in cooperation and collaboration with the Acadiana Advocate, supplied to us by them. We appreciate that very much. We do this every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We appreciate you listening in. And as always, I say, be safe, be healthy, and be smart, folks. Please wear your mask. We're still in a period of time where we need to be really smart about this. We need to stop the spread. So please be careful when you're out there in the public and you're not around people who you've been quarantining with this last 5 months. Just be careful out there, be safe, and we'll get through this together. As always, this is Bruce Cohen, and we'll be Bruce Cohen. And as I say every morning, be kind to each other. Have a great day.